The pills tasted like chalk and metal, dissolving bitter on my tongue, even though I swallowed them with orange juice. Vanessa watched me from the kitchen doorway, her nurse's smile fixed in place, efficient and empty. "Good, Claudia. You're doing so well with your medication," she said, making a note on her phone. "Always documenting, always tracking." I tried to remember what the pills were for. My doctor had said. What had he said? The words floated just out of reach, like trying to grab smoke. Richard had been there at that appointment, hadn't he? Or was it Amanda? The days were bleeding together now, watercolor hours that ran and pooled into confusion. If you're watching, please like and subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're from. Mom, you okay? Richard appeared beside Vanessa, my firstborn, 35 years old, and looking more like his father every day. Same strong jaw, same careful eyes. But David had never looked at me the way Richard did now, like I was fragile glass he was afraid to touch. "I'm fine, baby. Just tired." "That's the medication," Vanessa said smoothly, already putting away the pill bottles. "Dr. Chen said you'd feel drowsy at first. It'll help with the memory issues." Memory issues. That's what they called it now. Alzheimer's, they'd said. Early onset. Aggressive. At 62, I was losing myself piece by piece, names and dates slipping through my fingers like water. Last week, I'd forgotten how to work the coffee maker I'd owned for 15 years. Yesterday, I couldn't remember my sister's maiden name, though she'd been dead 20 years and keeping her married name the whole time. If you're watching, please like and subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where in the world you're from. The Seattle rain drummed against the windows of my Magnolia house, the home David and I had bought 30 years ago when the neighborhood was still affordable and our dreams still fit inside our budget. 4 bedrooms, view of the Sound, garden that bloomed defiant every spring. I'd planned to die here, surrounded by memory and meaning. Now I couldn't remember which bedroom was mine. "We need to talk about something," Richard said, sitting beside me at the kitchen table. The morning light made him look older, or maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time in weeks. Months? How long had this been happening? Amanda joined us, my daughter, 32 and pregnant with her second child, her belly round under an expensive maternity dress I didn't remember buying her. When had I bought her that dress? "Mom, we've been researching," Amanda said, her voice soft with the kind of gentleness people use when they think you're breaking. "There's a clinic in Costa Rica. They specialize in early-stage Alzheimer's treatment, experimental therapies that aren't approved here yet." Costa Rica. The words conjured images from travel magazines, beaches, rainforests, birds bright as jewels. I'd never been. David and I had always meant to travel after retirement, but then his heart had given out at 49. And I'd thrown myself into work instead of grief, building a career in tech finance that paid well enough to secure my children's futures. A clinic? My voice sounded strange to my own ears, thick and slow. "It's supposed to be revolutionary," Vanessa added, pulling up something on her phone. "They've had incredible results with patients like you, and the environment. It's so peaceful, good for healing." If you're watching, please like and subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're from. I looked at the screen she showed me. A white building with palm trees, patients smiling in tropical gardens, testimonials in English and Spanish. It looked expensive. It looked legitimate. It looked like hope. "How much?" I asked. "Don't worry about that," Richard said quickly. "We'll handle it. You gave us power of attorney, remember? So we could help manage your finances while you're not feeling well. Power of attorney." I remembered signing those papers. My lawyer, Thomas Martinez, a man I'd helped years ago when he was fresh out of law school and desperate for work, had seemed hesitant. "Claudia, are you sure?" he'd asked. "Both children? Jointly? That's a lot of control." But I'd been certain. These were my babies. They loved me. They wanted to help. "When?" I heard myself ask. "Next week," Amanda said. "We've already arranged everything. Vanessa will come with you. Help you get settled. It's only for a few months, just until the treatment takes effect." A few months, away from Seattle, away from my home, away from everything familiar. Something in my chest tightened with panic I couldn't quite name, but the fog in my head was so thick, and the pills Vanessa had given me were pulling me down into cotton-soft confusion where thoughts couldn't find purchase. "Okay," I whispered, "if you think it's best." Vanessa's smile widened, sharp at the edges. "You're going to feel so much better, Claudia. I promise." That night, I lay in bed listening to voices from downstairs, Richard and Vanessa talking, their words muffled but urgent. I caught fragments. "Only a few more weeks. Once she's settled, can't back out now." I tried to hold on to those words, tried to understand why they made my heart race. But sleep pulled me under, heavy and dark, and when I woke the next morning, I couldn't remember if I'd dreamed them or heard them at all. The pills waited on my nightstand. I took them without being asked. The airplane cabin smelled like recycled air and someone's too sweet perfume. I sat between Vanessa and a businessman who didn't look up from his laptop the entire flight, his fingers moving across keys in rhythms I couldn't follow. We were flying south, away from rain and gray skies, towards sun I couldn't quite imagine. My hands were shaking, but Vanessa said that was normal, just the medication adjusting. She'd given me another pill before we boarded, for the anxiety, she'd said, and now everything felt underwater, sounds reaching me delayed and distorted. "You're doing great, Claudia," Vanessa murmured, patting my hand. Her nails were painted coral, perfectly manicured. I wondered when she'd had time for that, with a full-time nursing job and taking care of me. When had I become someone who needed taking care of? I tried to remember the last time I'd felt sharp, certain, in control of my own mind. It had been months ago, maybe longer. I'd been reviewing investment portfolios at my desk, the numbers clear and logical, when suddenly they'd stopped making sense. The columns had blurred, the figures rearranging themselves into patterns I couldn't recognize. I'd closed my laptop and called Richard, my voice shaking. "Something's wrong." That was the beginning. After that came the doctor visits, the tests, the diagnosis that had landed like a bomb in my carefully constructed life. "Early onset Alzheimer's," Dr. Chen had said, his face professionally sympathetic. "Aggressive progression. I'm sorry, Claudia. But now, on this plane carrying me away from everything I knew, something nagged at the edges of my foggy consciousness. Something about that day in Dr. Chen's office. Richard had been with me, and afterward, when I'd asked for a copy of the test results, he'd said he'd get them for me. I'd never seen them. "Vanessa," I said slowly, forcing words through the medication haze. "Can I see my medical records from Dr. Chen?" She stiffened almost imperceptibly. "Why would you need those right now?" I want to understand what's happening to me." "Of course you do." Her smile was understanding, condescending. "But let's wait until we get to the clinic. The doctors there will explain everything. You'll just confuse yourself trying to read medical jargon." The businessman beside me finally looked up, his eyes moving between us with something that might have been concern. I wanted to say something to him. Wanted to ask, what? For help? Based on what? A feeling I couldn't articulate through the chemical fog filling my skull. I turned back to the window and watched clouds pass below, white and endless. We landed in San Jose as evening fell, the air hot and heavy after Seattle's October chill. Vanessa navigated the airport with efficiency, handling my passport, my luggage, steering me through customs like I was a child. Maybe I was now. Maybe this was what I'd become. A driver waited outside with a sign reading, "Morrison," professional in his pressed white shirt. He loaded our bags into a van that smelled like leather and cleaning solution, then drove us through streets that grew progressively less maintained, buildings that looked increasingly worn. "Is the clinic far?" I asked. "About 30 minutes, Vanessa said. "It's in a quieter area. Better for patients who need peace." We drove past San Jose's center, past neighborhoods that looked comfortable, then middle class, then struggling. The clinic, when we finally arrived, was not the white building with palm trees from the website. It was a squat concrete structure, painted institutional beige, surrounded by high walls and gates that locked behind us with a clang that sounded too much like prison. "This is it?" My voice was small. "The website photos are of the sister facility," Vanessa said smoothly. "This is the treatment center, more private." Inside smelled like bleach and boiled vegetables. A woman at the front desk spoke rapid Spanish to Vanessa, who apparently spoke it fluently. When had she learned Spanish? They exchanged papers, money, documents I couldn't quite see. Then a nurse appeared, older, with tired eyes and a name tag that read Rosa. "If you're watching, please like and subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where in the world you're from." "Senora Morrison," Rosa said in accented English. "Come, I show you room." I followed her down a hallway with flickering fluorescent lights, past rooms where elderly people sat staring at television screens or sleeping in beds with metal rails. This wasn't a cutting-edge research facility. This was a nursing home, a cheap one judging by the peeling paint and the institutional furniture. My room was small, a narrow bed, a plastic chair, a window with bars. "Wait," I said, turning to Vanessa. "This isn't right. This isn't what we talked about." "You're confused, Claudia. The medication makes you disoriented. This is exactly where you need to be." She handed Rosa a bottle of pills. "Make sure she takes these, twice daily, with food. They're essential for her treatment." Rosa took the bottle, her expression unreadable. "I'll be back to check on you in a few weeks," Vanessa said to me, already backing toward the door. Richard and Amanda send their love. Focus on getting better. Then she was gone, and I was standing in a room that smelled like old age and abandonment, with bars on the window and a stranger holding medication I suddenly didn't want to take. Rosa looked at me for a long moment. "You tired?" she said. "Sleep now. Tomorrow we talk." But I didn't sleep. I lay on that narrow bed, listening to sounds I didn't recognize. Someone crying down the hall, television static, the clang of gates locking and unlocking, and tried to remember who I'd been before the fog descended. Tried to hold on to the feeling growing stronger with every minute that something was terribly, irrevocably wrong. 3 days in that place, and the fog started to thin. It happened slowly at first, like waking from anesthesia, thoughts returning in fragments that didn't quite connect. I'd been taking the pills Rosa brought me twice daily, swallowing them obediently, because that's what sick people did. But on the third night, Rosa sat on the plastic chair beside my bed and spoke in a voice too low for the hallway cameras to catch. "You know," she said carefully, "those pills you taking, they make you sleepy, confused. You take them long time?" "Months," I whispered. My tongue felt thick. "Since the diagnosis." "What diagnosis?" "Alzheimer's. Early onset." Rosa's expression darkened. "You have test? Brain scan, maybe?" I tried to remember. Had there been scans? Dr. Chen had done cognitive tests, memory exercises, pattern recognition, word recall, but actual imaging? I don't think so. "Senora Morrison," Rosa said, leaning closer. "I am nurse 40 years. I see many patients with dementia, with Alzheimer's. You not act like them. You act like someone being drugged." The room seemed to tilt. "What? These pills your family give you?" She pulled the bottle from her pocket, read the label. "This is benzodiazepine, very strong. And this one, it make memory problems, confusion. Nobody give these to Alzheimer's patient. They make things worse, not better." My heart was hammering now, punching through the pharmaceutical cotton in my chest. "But my doctor prescribed them." "Maybe, maybe not. You have papers? Prescription papers?" I didn't. I'd trusted Vanessa to manage my medications. She was a nurse. She knew what she was doing, except what if she did know exactly what she was doing? Rosa watched emotions flood across my face. Denial, disbelief, horror. "I see this before," she said quietly. "Family bring elderly person here, pay cash, say keep them quiet, keep them medicated. Usually the old person has money, property. Family want them gone but not dead, just absent." "No." The word came out broken. "No, my children wouldn't." "I hope you're right, Senora. But I work here 5 years. I see many families do terrible things for money." She stood, pocketed the pill bottles. "Tonight I give you water, no pills. Tomorrow, same. We see if you start thinking more clear. If you do, then we know." "And if we know?" I asked. "If you're right, what do I do?" Rosa's smile was sad. "Then you wake up, Senora, and you fight." She left me alone in the dark, and for the first time in months, sleep didn't come easy. Instead, I lay staring at the barred window, watching palm fronds shift in moonlight, and tried to reconstruct my recent past with a mind slowly clearing of chemical interference. The pills Vanessa had given me. How long? I'd been living with Richard and Vanessa for 4 months, since I'd started having symptoms. But those symptoms, the confusion, the memory loss, the spatial disorientation, when exactly had they begun? I focused hard, pushing through the residual fog. I'd been fine in June, sharp as ever, managing my investments, volunteering at the community center, planning to take a quilting class with my friend Diane. Then July had come, and suddenly I couldn't remember appointments, couldn't follow conversations, couldn't work the coffee maker I'd used every day for 15 years. July, the month Vanessa had started bringing me vitamins. "You're not taking care of yourself, Claudia," she'd said with such concern. "Let me help. I'll organize your supplements, make sure you're getting what you need." And I'd let her, because she was a nurse, because she was my son's wife, because I was 62 and maybe it was time to let someone younger and more capable take care of details, except they hadn't been vitamins, or not just vitamins. The implications spread through my clearing mind like blood through water, darkening everything, staining every interaction with new meaning. If Vanessa had been drugging me, if she'd created my symptoms, then what else was false? The diagnosis? My doctor visits? Had I even seen Dr. Chen? Or had Richard taken me somewhere else, to someone who'd confirm whatever story they needed confirmed? And why? Why would my children do this? Money. Rosa had said it plainly. The old person has money. I did have money. David's life insurance, my retirement accounts, the house in Magnolia worth well over $1 million now. investment properties in Capitol Hill from before the neighborhood gentrified. I'd told the children it would all be theirs eventually, planned carefully to minimize estate taxes, set up trusts for my future grandchildren. Eventually. But how much was eventually worth, and how long were they willing to wait? By morning, when Rosa brought me water and toast instead of pills, my thoughts were moving faster, clearer. The fog was lifting, and what it revealed was a precipice. "You feeling better?" Rosa asked. "Yes," I said, and heard the strength returning to my voice. "I need to make a phone call. To my friend in Seattle." "They take your phone?" "Vanessa has it. Said I didn't need it here, that it would just confuse me." Rosa nodded slowly. "I bring you phone. Not mine. They trace that. But there is patient here. She die last week. Her family not come get belongings yet. I bring her phone. You call quick, okay? Maybe 5 minutes." "Thank you," I whispered. "Rosa, why are you helping me?" She looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. "Because my mother, she die in place like this, far from home, drugged and alone. And because I think maybe you are good person, who bad people try to disappear. I not let that happen again if I can stop it." She brought me the phone an hour later, charged and hidden in a towel. My hands shook as I dialed Diane's number, praying she hadn't changed it, praying she'd answer. 3 rings, 4, then, "Hello? Diane." My voice cracked. "It's Claudia." "Claudia? My God, where are you?" Richard said. She stopped abruptly. "Said what?" A long pause. Then carefully, "Honey, Richard said you died 2 weeks ago. He said you'd been in Costa Rica getting treatment, and you passed away from complications. He held a memorial service last weekend. A small one, he said, because you'd wanted it private." The phone nearly slipped from my hands. Rosa caught it, held it steady, while my world rearranged itself into shapes I couldn't recognize. "Diane," I said through numb lips, "I'm alive. I'm in Costa Rica, but I'm alive, and I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you." Rosa brought me paper and a pen that afternoon, smuggled in the pocket of her scrubs. I sat on my narrow bed with the barred window casting shadows and wrote everything I could remember with a mind growing sharper by the hour. July 2nd, first confusion episode. Couldn't remember where I'd parked my car at Whole Foods. Vanessa suggested I start taking the supplements she'd prepared. July 15th, missed lunch with Diane. Couldn't remember making the date, though she showed me my own handwriting in her calendar. August 3rd, Richard insisted I move in with him and Vanessa, said I wasn't safe living alone. August 20th, appointment with Dr. Chen. Or was it Dr. Chen? I never saw his office. Richard drove me to a medical building in Bellevue I didn't recognize. September 1st, signed power of attorney papers. Thomas Martinez seemed concerned, but I insisted I trusted my children. October 5th, they told me about Costa Rica. I was so confused by then, I couldn't think straight enough to question it. The timeline was damning. Every symptom had begun after Vanessa started giving me pills. Every decline had been documented, photographed, witnessed, building a case for my incompetence. And now they'd declared me dead. "Why kill me?" I asked Rosa when she came to check on me, to bring more water and bread she'd saved from her own lunch. "Why not just keep me here, drugged and quiet? Maybe it's cheaper," Rosa said. "This place, it costs money every month. If you dead, they don't pay no more. And dead person, she not come back. She not wake up one day and cause problems." She was right. A dead woman couldn't reclaim her assets, couldn't contest legal proceedings, couldn't expose the truth. Declaring me dead was tidier than maintaining the elaborate lie of my illness. "There's something else," I said slowly, the pieces clicking together. "If they've declared me dead, that means they're moving to settle my estate. Soon. Maybe immediately. What this mean? Settle estate, transfer everything I own into their names, properties, bank accounts, investments, all of it. I stood, pacing the small room, energy flooding back into limbs that had been sluggish for months. In Washington state, if someone dies without complex estate issues, the process can be relatively fast, especially if the heirs are cooperative and the will is straightforward. "You have will?" "Yes, everything split equally between Richard and Amanda. I made it simple on purpose, didn't want them fighting over my bones." The irony was bitter as poison. Rosa pulled out a phone, not the borrowed one, her own this time. "You friend Diane? She can help? Maybe, if she believes me. If she's willing to go up against my children." I thought about Diane, my friend of 30 years, my sister, in all but blood. She'd questioned the memorial service, I was sure of it. Diane knew me. She'd know something was wrong. "Call her again," Rosa said, handing me the phone. "Tell her what you need." This time Diane answered on the first ring. "Claudia? Jesus Christ, I've been going crazy. I tried calling Richard back, tried to ask questions about what happened, but he said he was too grief-stricken to talk and hung up on me. Listen carefully," I said. I don't have much time. Do you still have that contact at Seattle PD? Detective Williams, from when your house was burglarized? Yeah, why? Because I'm going to need a police report filed, and I need you to go to my house before Richard and Vanessa clear it out. There's a safe in my bedroom closet, behind the shoe rack. Combination is David's birthday. Inside, you'll find copies of all my financial documents, my will, my medical records from my actual doctor, Dr. Patricia Vance, not whoever Richard took me to. I could hear Diane writing this down. What am I looking for? Proof that I was competent when I signed those power of attorney papers. Proof that I don't have Alzheimer's. And if possible, I need you to get samples of any pills or supplements left in my room. Rosa thinks they were drugging me. Who's Rosa? The nurse here who saved my life. A sharp intake of breath. Claudia, what exactly is happening? I told her. All of it. The pills, the false diagnosis, the declared death, the plan to inherit my estate while I rotted in a cheap nursing home in Central America. When I finished, Diane was crying. I'm going to kill them, she said. I'm actually going to kill your children. Don't. But help me. Help me get evidence. Help me get home. Help me prove I'm alive before they take everything. Can you do that? Yes. God, yes. What else do you need? Check the probate court records. If they've filed to start settling my estate, I need to know when the first hearings are scheduled. And Diane? Call Thomas Martinez. Tell him I'm alive and I need his help. He owes me. The lawyer you helped 15 years ago? Yeah. He's good, he's ethical, and he'll remember. Tell him everything. Tell him I need someone I can trust, because I don't know who else might be involved. We talked for 10 more minutes, making plans, establishing secure ways to communicate. Rosa had a friend who worked at an internet cafe in San Jose. I could email Diane from there, stay off any phones that could be traced back to Rosa. When I finally hung up, my hands were steady. The fog was gone completely now, burned away by rage and clarity. They'd tried to erase me. They'd declared me dead, mourned me in public while planning to profit from my destruction. But I was alive, and I was coming for them. Getting out of the facility wasn't easy. Rosa couldn't just walk me out the front door without losing her job and possibly facing legal consequences. We needed a better plan. You have passport? Rosa asked, 3 days into my recovery, when my body had purged enough of the medication that I could think clearly for hours at a stretch. Vanessa has it. She took it when we arrived. Okay, I get you new one maybe. I have friend. He does papers. Not cheap, not perfect, but enough to fly. That's illegal. Rosa gave me a look that said I was being naive. Senora, they already kill you on paper. You want to follow rules or you want to go home? She was right. I was learning that there were different kinds of death. Legal death, social death, the death of the person you'd been before. The world proved itself crueler than you'd understood. If I was going to resurrect myself, I'd need to be willing to break rules I'd spent a lifetime following. How much? I asked. For passport, travel documents, maybe $2,000 US. I pay now, you pay back later. I'll pay you back double, triple. Rosa, I'll make sure you never have to work in a place like this again if you help me get home. She smiled, tired, but genuine. I help you because is right thing. But I not say no to money, senora. My daughter, she want to be doctor. That costs money too. We made a plan. Rosa would take a week's vacation she'd been saving. Her supervisor owed her favors, wouldn't question it. She'd tell them I was too sick to leave my room, that she'd arranged for another nurse to bring meals and medication. In reality, I'd stay hidden, recovering my strength, while Rosa's friend produced the documents I needed. Meanwhile, Diane was moving pieces into place back in Seattle. She'd gone to my house the day after our first call, using the spare key I'd given her years ago, in case of emergency. The safe had been untouched. Apparently, Richard hadn't known about it. She'd found my real medical records, showing I was neurologically healthy as of my last physical in May. She'd found pills in my bathroom medicine cabinet and sent them to a private lab for analysis. She'd also found something else, a document on Richard's computer, carelessly left open, detailing their plan. Timeline for estate settlement. October 15th, declare mom deceased, file death certificate. October 22nd, hold memorial service. October 30th, first probate hearing to initiate estate transfer. November 15th, final asset distribution, projected. Diane had photographed everything and sent it to Thomas Martinez, who'd immediately filed an emergency motion to halt probate proceedings. But he needed me, or at least proof I was alive, to make it stick. The hearing's in 9 days, Diane told me over Rosa's borrowed phone. Can you get back by then? I'll try. But Diane, even if I make it back, they'll say I'm confused, mentally incompetent. The whole reason this worked is because they've documented months of my declining condition. That's where the pill analysis comes in. The lab confirmed what your nurse suspected: benzodiazepines, high doses, plus an antihistamine known to cause cognitive impairment in elderly patients. Thomas says, if we can prove they were deliberately drugging you, it invalidates any evidence of incompetence. That's a big if. Vanessa prescribed the pills, supposedly on doctor's orders, except we called Dr. Chen, your actual Dr. Chen. He has no record of diagnosing you with Alzheimer's or prescribing any medications. Someone created false medical records, Claudia, and I'm betting it was the Dr. Richard took you to in Bellevue, if that person was even a real doctor. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they formed was so much worse than I'd imagined. This hadn't been impulsive, hadn't been opportunistic. This had been planned, methodical, executed, with the kind of cold precision that required time and calculation. My son, my daughter-in-law who I'd welcomed into the family, who'd called me mom, who'd stood beside my hospital bed when her first child was born and cried with joy. They'd tried to erase me from existence. On day 6 of Rosa's vacation, the documents arrived. A Costa Rican passport under a slightly different name, Claudia Moreno instead of Morrison, close enough to use my real first name, different enough to avoid immediate flag. Travel documents showing I was a naturalized citizen returning home after visiting family. Your friend, the lawyer, he send money, Rosa said, handing me an envelope with $3,000 cash. He say for travel, for anything you need. He say call him when you get to Miami. Miami. That was Rosa's suggestion. Fly to Florida first, not directly to Seattle. Less chance of being flagged at customs, easier to stay under the radar until I was ready to reveal myself. One more thing, Rosa said. Your hair. You need to change it. She was right. My silver hair was distinctive, would be easy to spot if Richard had thought to flag my description at airports. Rosa had a friend who ran a small salon in San Jose. We went there after dark, and I emerged 3 hours later with dark brown hair, cut shorter than I'd worn it in decades. I looked at myself in the salon mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Thinner from weeks of poor food and medication fog. Harder somehow. Lines around my eyes that hadn't been there in June, but alive. Undeniably, illegally, inconveniently alive. You look strong, Rosa said. Like a fighter. I don't feel strong. Nobody does, Senora. We just act like we are until we believe it. I hugged her goodbye at the San Jose airport. This woman who'd saved me for no reason except that it was right. I'll send your money as soon as I can access my accounts. And Rosa? Your daughter's medical school? I'll pay for it. All of it. She cried then, quickly wiping her eyes. You go. You fight. You win. That is payment enough. The flight to Miami was turbulence and terror. Every immigration official, every security checkpoint. I expected someone to pull me aside, to run my passport, to discover that Claudia Morrison was legally dead. But the documents Rosa's friend had created were good enough, and I passed through like a ghost returning to the living world. Thomas Martinez met me at Miami International, this man I'd helped get his first job, who'd repaid that kindness by believing in me when my own children didn't. He looked at me and went pale. Jesus Christ, he whispered. You're really alive. Disappointed? I managed to smile. Furious, relieved, terrified. Claudia, we have 3 days before the probate hearing. 3 days to prepare, to document everything, to build a case that will hold up in court. Then let's not waste time, I said. Take me somewhere I can make calls. I want to know exactly what my children have been doing with my estate. We flew to Seattle that night, Thomas having booked tickets under my new legal name. Diane met us at her house in Ballard, and I walked into her kitchen and broke down completely for the first time since this nightmare began. I'm alive, I sobbed into her shoulder. I'm alive and I'm home, and they tried to kill me. Shh, Diane whispered, holding tight. You're here now. We're going to make this right. I promise you, Claudia. We're going to make them pay. Thomas's office in Pioneer Square smelled like coffee and old books, his desk buried under documents that told the story of my own death. He'd been thorough, compiling everything. The false death certificate, the memorial service announcement Richard had posted on Facebook, the probate filings requesting immediate transfer of assets. They moved fast, Thomas said, spreading the papers across his conference table. Faster than normal. Usually families wait at least a few weeks to file, give themselves time to grieve. Your kids filed 4 days after declaring you dead. I studied the death certificate, my hands steadier than I expected. Cause of death, complications from Alzheimer's disease. Attending physician, Dr. Michael Brennan. Location of death, San Jose, Costa Rica. Who's Dr. Brennan? We're looking into it. There's a Michael Brennan who practices family medicine in Bellevue, but he claims he's never heard of you, never signed this document. Someone forged his signature. Can we prove that? We're working on it. Diane got samples of his real signature from medical licensing records. Handwriting analysis should confirm the death certificate is fraudulent. I moved to the next document, my will, suddenly resurrected and filed with the court. Everything split equally between Richard and Amanda, just as I'd written it 5 years ago, when life was simple, and I believed my children loved me. They're saying the estate is worth approximately $2.8 million, Thomas continued. That includes your house, your retirement accounts, your investments, your life insurance. They've already started liquidating some assets, sold your car, closed out your checking account, terminated your credit cards. Can they do that with just a death certificate? If they have power of attorney, which you gave them, and if you're declared deceased, yes, they can act immediately to settle your affairs. The fact that they're doing it so aggressively is actually helpful for our case. It shows intent, shows this wasn't about grief or confusion. This was about money. Diane sat across from me, her face drawn with exhaustion. She'd been working nonstop for days, gathering evidence, making calls, documenting everything. There's more, she said quietly. I did some digging into Richard and Vanessa's finances. They're drowning Claudia. He's got gambling debts of over $400,000. She's got credit card debt approaching 6 figures. They took out a second mortgage on their house last year. They're 3 months behind on their car payments. The numbers hit like physical blows. 400,000? Sports betting mostly. Some poker. Started small a few years ago, but it accelerated. There are collection agencies calling, threats of legal action. He was desperate enough to kill his mother, desperate enough to forge documents, drug me into incompetence, hide me in a foreign country, and declare me dead. And Amanda? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Less involved operationally, Thomas said, but definitely aware. We found text messages between her and Richard discussing the timeline for your decline. She knew what was happening. She just let Vanessa and Richard handle the detail. My daughter, 32 years old, pregnant with my grandchild, complicit in erasing me. What do we do? I asked. My voice sounded strange, flat, emotionless. I'd moved past crying somewhere over the Gulf of Mexico, had landed in a territory beyond grief that felt like ice. First, Thomas said, we prove you're alive. That's actually the easy part. You're sitting here breathing, and that's pretty irrefutable. I've already drafted an emergency motion to halt the probate proceedings. We'll file it tomorrow morning. Won't they see it? Won't Richard and Amanda know I'm back? Yes, which is why we need to move quickly on the criminal case. He pulled out another document. I've been coordinating with the prosecutor's office. With your testimony, plus the evidence Diane gathered, plus the medical analysis showing you were drugged, we have enough for arrest warrants. Fraud, identity theft, forgery, elder abuse, possibly even attempted murder. Attempted murder? They declared you dead while you were alive and took actions to appropriate your assets. If we can prove they intended to keep you hidden and eventually let you die, that's murder, or at minimum manslaughter. The prosecutor thinks it's worth pursuing. I thought about Rosa, about the facility where she'd found me, about the dozens of other patients in rooms with barred windows. How many of them were there because families wanted them disappeared? How many declarations of death were convenient fictions? I want to testify, I said. I want to look them in the eye and tell them I'm alive. You'll get that chance, Thomas promised. The probate hearing is Thursday. That's where we'll reveal you're alive and move to dismiss everything they've filed. After that, the criminal proceedings begin. Do we tell them before Thursday? Give them any warning? Diane and Thomas exchanged looks. That's your call, Thomas said carefully. Legally, we don't have to. But if it were me, if someone had done this to me, I'd want the maximum possible shock value. I thought about it. About Richard walking into that courtroom, expecting to finalize his theft, finding instead that his dead mother had risen from the grave. About the moment his careful plan collapsed. About the look on his face when he realized I knew everything. No warning, I said. Let them think they've won. Right up until the moment I walk through that door. We spent the next 2 days preparing. Thomas coached me on testimony, helped me organize the timeline, reviewed every piece of evidence until I could recite it in my sleep. Diane stayed with me at a hotel near the airport. We didn't risk going to my house in case Richard was monitoring it. On Wednesday night, I couldn't sleep. Lay in the hotel bed listening to traffic on I-5, thinking about my children, about the years I'd spent raising them, protecting them, giving them everything I had. David had died when they were teenagers. Richard was 15. Amanda was 12. I'd been both parents after that, working and worrying and loving with everything I had left after grief took its share. Where had I failed them? What had I done to make them capable of this? Or maybe that was the wrong question. Maybe some people were just capable of anything when desperation met opportunity. My phone buzzed. The new one Thomas had given me, registered under a fake name. A text from Diane. "You okay?" "No. But I will be. That's my girl. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we go to war." I set the phone aside and closed my eyes, but I didn't pray for sleep. I prayed for strength, for the courage to face my children, for the ability to watch them arrested without breaking, for the coldness I'd need to survive resurrection. Thursday morning arrived with rain, Seattle embracing me back with weather that felt like home. I dressed carefully, a navy suit I'd bought years ago, my hair still dark and unfamiliar, my makeup minimal but precise. Thomas had warned me, "You need to look competent, healthy, undeniably alive. No room for them to claim confusion." Diane drove us to the King County Courthouse through morning traffic, Thomas following in his own car. We'd timed it perfectly, planned to arrive exactly when the hearing started, giving Richard and Amanda no warning, no chance to flee or consult their own lawyers. The probate courtroom was small, wood-paneled, smelling like furniture polish and old paper. Through the window in the door, I could see them already seated, Richard in a dark suit, looking appropriately somber, Amanda beside him, her pregnant belly pronounced under a black dress, and Vanessa sitting behind them, her face carefully neutral. They'd brought a lawyer, some young woman in an expensive suit who was organizing files, clearly expecting a routine proceeding. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Patricia Hyland, was reviewing documents at her bench. "Ready?" Thomas asked quietly. I nodded, not trusting my voice. We walked in. The courtroom went silent. Richard looked up first, his face registering confusion, then shock, then something close to horror. Amanda's hand flew to her mouth. Vanessa went white, then red, her calculated composure shattering. "Your Honor," Thomas said, his voice carrying easily in the sudden quiet. "I'm Thomas Martinez, representing Claudia Morrison. I apologize for the interruption, but I believe there's been a significant error in these proceedings." Judge Hyland looked from Thomas to me, her eyebrows raising. "An error?" "Yes, Your Honor. The court has received a petition to settle the estate of Claudia Morrison, deceased. However," he gestured to me, "Ms. Morrison appears to be very much alive." "That's impossible," Richard's lawyer sputtered, standing. "We have a death certificate. We have a fraudulent document," Thomas interrupted smoothly, "which my client is prepared to address. Your Honor, I filed an emergency motion this morning to halt these proceedings and vacate the death certificate. I believe it's been delivered to your chambers?" Judge Hyland's clerk leaned over, whispered something. The judge's expression shifted from confusion to something harder. "I see. Ms. Morrison, is it? Would you care to explain what's happening here?" I stepped forward, my legs steadier than I expected. This was the moment. This was where I reclaimed myself. "Your Honor, my name is Claudia Morrison. 6 months ago, my daughter-in-law began giving me medication that she claimed would help with cognitive decline. In reality, those pills contained benzodiazepines and other drugs that created symptoms of dementia. My son and daughter used my apparent incompetence to obtain power of attorney over my affairs. Then they placed me in a facility in Costa Rica, declared me deceased in the United States, and began liquidating my assets." The courtroom erupted. Richard's lawyer was objecting. Richard himself was on his feet. Amanda was crying. Vanessa sat frozen, her nurse's mask shattered completely. "That's insane," Richard said, his voice too loud. "Mom, what are you? You're confused. You're sick. "I'm not confused," I said, and my voice cut through his panic like steel. "I'm not sick. I was drugged, deliberately, for months. And then you dumped me in a nursing home and told everyone I was dead so you could steal my money." "Your Honor, this is absurd," Richard's lawyer tried. "Ms. Morrison has documented cognitive impairment, multiple physician consultations confirming fraudulent medical records," Thomas interjected, handing up a folder. "Your Honor, we have evidence that the physician who allegedly diagnosed Ms. Morrison with Alzheimer's doesn't exist. The real Dr. Chen, Ms. Morrison's longtime physician, has provided records showing she's neurologically healthy. We also have laboratory analysis of pills found in Ms. Morrison's home, proving they contain drugs known to cause cognitive symptoms. And we have witness testimony from the facility in Costa Rica where she was held, confirming she was kept sedated against her will." Judge Hyland was reading rapidly, her expression growing darker. "Mr. Morrison, do you have representation?" Richard's lawyer had gone pale. "Your Honor, I was retained only to handle the estate settlement. If there are allegations of criminal conduct, I need to..." You need to sit down, Judge Hyland said coldly. She looked at Richard. Do you understand that what's being alleged here constitutes multiple felonies? This is a misunderstanding, Richard said, but his voice was shaking now. My mother is ill. She's been ill for months. We were trying to help her. By declaring her dead? The judge's voice was sharp. By filing to inherit her estate while she was alive in another country? Amanda was sobbing now, mascara running down her face. We didn't mean... It wasn't supposed to. Vanessa put a hand on her arm, silencing her. Even now, even as everything collapsed, Vanessa was trying to control the narrative. Your Honor, Thomas said, we're requesting that you immediately dismiss all probate proceedings, void the power of attorney documents, and restore Ms. Morrison's control over her assets. Additionally, we're requesting that you order Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, along with Ms. Morrison's daughter Amanda Clark, to appear before this court next week to show cause why they shouldn't be held in contempt. Granted, Judge Hyland said immediately. All probate proceedings are dismissed. The power of attorney is voided. Ms. Morrison, do you have a secure place to stay? Yes, Your Honor. Good. Because I'm also ordering that the respondents, she looked at Richard, Amanda, and Vanessa with obvious distaste, are to have no contact with you whatsoever, pending resolution of these matters. Violation will result in immediate arrest. She turned to her clerk. Contact the prosecutor's office. Tell them I want someone here within the hour to review this case for criminal charges. Richard was backing toward the door, his face ashen. Mom, please, if you'd just listen. I listened for months, I said quietly, while you drugged me, while you convinced me I was losing my mind, while you shipped me to another country and told your friends I was dead. I'm done listening, Richard. Now you get to listen while I tell the truth. The bailiff moved to block the door. Nobody leaves until the prosecutor arrives, he said. We stood there in that courtroom, my children, my daughter-in-law, and me, risen from the dead they'd declared me. Outside, rain continued to fall. Inside, the careful structure of their lies was finally, irrevocably collapsing, and I watched it all with eyes that were clear and cold and absolutely, finally, free. The prosecutor's office sent Kimberly Chen, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and sharper questions. She commandeered a conference room in the courthouse and spent 3 hours interviewing me, Thomas producing documents, Diane corroborating everything I said. This is one of the most egregious cases of elder abuse I've encountered, Kimberly finally said, sitting back in her chair. The premeditation alone is staggering. Ms. Morrison, if you're willing to testify, I can bring charges for fraud, forgery, identity theft, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, and false reporting. Depending on what else we uncover, possibly attempted murder. I'll testify, I said. Whatever you need. What about them? Thomas gestured toward the hallway where Richard, Amanda, and Vanessa waited with lawyers they'd hastily called. Are you arresting them today? Not immediately. I want to build the strongest possible case first, but I am requesting emergency protective orders to prevent them from liquidating any remaining assets or leaving the state. She looked at me. They've already sold your car and emptied your checking account. What else did they have access to? I went through the list. My house, my retirement accounts, my investment properties, my life insurance policies. Most were protected by the fact that I was now provably alive, but the cash assets they'd already moved were gone, dispersed into their accounts, likely spent on gambling debts and credit cards. We'll work on asset recovery, Kimberly promised. You may not get everything back, but we'll try. Over the next week, the story unfolded in pieces. Detective Williams, the same one Diane had contacted, interviewed Rosa via video call, documented the facility where I'd been held, took statements from other staff who confirmed I'd been heavily medicated. The pills Diane had collected were analyzed further, revealing a cocktail specifically designed to mimic dementia symptoms without causing permanent damage. She's smart, the pharmacologist told us. Whoever designed this knew exactly what they were doing. Strong enough to incapacitate, but subtle enough to seem like natural cognitive decline. Vanessa, who'd spent years in nursing, who understood medications and dosages, who'd had the knowledge and access to execute this plan. The forensic accountant Thomas hired traced the money. Richard had taken $150,000 from my accounts in the 2 weeks since declaring me dead, using it to pay down gambling debts. Amanda had taken another $75,000, deposited it in a joint account with her husband. They'd listed my house for sale, though thankfully it hadn't closed yet. And the death certificate? Dr. Michael Brennan's signature had been forged. Handwriting analysis confirmed it. The document had never been filed with Costa Rican authorities. It existed only in Washington state, manufactured specifically to enable the estate proceedings. They didn't think you'd come back, Detective Williams said during one of our sessions. That's what's remarkable. They built this whole structure assuming you'd either die in that facility or remain hidden indefinitely. They never planned for you fighting back. They didn't know Rosa, I said. They also didn't know you, Diane added quietly. They thought you'd break, that the drugs and the isolation would destroy who you were. They underestimated you, maybe. Or maybe I'd been lucky. Lucky that Rosa was ethical, that Diane was loyal, that Thomas remembered what I'd done for him. Survival felt less like strength and more like a series of people choosing kindness when cruelty would have been easier. 2 weeks after the courtroom confrontation, the criminal charges were filed. Richard and Vanessa faced 8 felony counts each. Amanda faced 5, her role proven to be less active but still complicit. Their lawyers negotiated bail, $100,000 each, posted by Vanessa's parents, who looked shell-shocked when they appeared in court. I didn't go to that hearing. Thomas represented me, said Richard, looked smaller somehow, diminished. Amanda was visibly pregnant now, her due date approaching fast. Vanessa maintained her composure, even in handcuffs, even facing decades in prison. She still thinks she can win, Thomas told me afterward. She's already building a defense, that she was trying to help you, that the medications were prescribed properly, that you're confused about what happened. Will it work? Not a chance. The evidence is too strong, but she'll try. People like her always do. I spent those weeks reclaiming my life piece by piece, changed all my passwords, secured my accounts, removed Richard and Amanda from every document where their names appeared. The house required fumigation, not literal, but it felt like it needed cleansing from everything that had happened there. I hired a company to clear out the rooms Richard and Vanessa had occupied, donated everything to charity, repainted the walls. The investment properties were secured, the retirement accounts frozen, and then released back to my control. The life insurance company, embarrassed by their failure to verify the death certificate, expedited returning everything to active status. I found a therapist, Dr. Sandra Kim, who specialized in trauma and family betrayal. Twice a week, I sat in her comfortable office with its plants and soft lighting and worked through the reality that my children had tried to erase me. The hardest part, I told her during one session, is that I still love them. How is that possible? After everything they did, I see Richard's face in my mind and I want to protect him. I remember Amanda as a little girl and my heart breaks. Love doesn't stop just because people hurt you, Dr. Kim said gently. Especially when those people are your children. You can love them and still hold them accountable. You can grieve who you thought they were while accepting who they actually are. Will I ever forgive them? That's up to you. Forgiveness isn't required for healing. Neither is reconciliation. What matters is that you move forward on your terms, not theirs. On a Tuesday in late November, Kimberly Chen called. They're offering a plea deal. Richard and Vanessa will plead guilty to fraud, financial exploitation, and false reporting in exchange for 7 years each. Amanda will plead to accessory charges, 3 years suspended sentence, 5 years probation. Perfeito. Vou continuar escrevendo os capítulos restantes, 8, 9 e 10 da história Declared Dead. What do you think? She asked. I sat with that question for a long time. 7 years for Richard, 7 years for Vanessa, 3 suspended for Amanda, meaning she'd serve no actual prison time if she complied with probation terms. It's not enough, I said finally. They tried to erase me. They drugged me, hid me, declared me dead, and tried to steal everything I'd spent my life building. 7 years? I understand your frustration, Kimberly said carefully. But trials are unpredictable. Juries are unpredictable. With a plea deal, we guarantee consequences. Without it, we risk them walking free entirely. What do you recommend? Take it, but make sure restitution is part of the agreement. Every penny they took, plus damages, and victim impact statements, you get to tell them, in court, exactly what they did to you. I talked it over with Dr. Kim, with Diane, with Thomas. Everyone agreed. The guaranteed consequences outweighed the risk of trial, so I accepted. The plea hearing was scheduled for December 15th. I attended, sitting in the front row, while Richard and Vanessa stood before Judge Highland and admitted what they'd done. Their voices were flat, rehearsed, their lawyers having coached them on showing appropriate remorse. Do you understand, Judge Highland asked Richard, that you drugged your mother, abandoned her in a foreign country, and declared her dead in order to steal her assets? Yes, Your Honor. His voice cracked on the words. And Ms. Hayes, the judge turned to Vanessa, as a licensed nurse, you used your medical knowledge to deliberately incapacitate a vulnerable adult. Do you understand the severity of that betrayal? Yes, Your Honor. Amanda's hearing was separate, less dramatic. She pleaded guilty to accessory charges, her pregnant belly pronounced under her loose dress, her husband sitting in the gallery, looking shell-shocked. Then came victim impact statements. I'd written mine carefully, worked through multiple drafts with Dr. Kim to make sure it said what I needed to say. I stood at the podium and looked at my children, really looked at them, for the first time since the courtroom resurrection. Richard, Amanda, I began, my voice steady. I gave you life. I raised you alone after your father died. I worked 2 jobs to send you to good schools. I sacrificed vacations, new cars, early retirement, all so you could have opportunities I never had. And when I finally had something to show for all that work, you tried to take it. Not by asking, not even by stealing quietly. You tried to erase me completely. Richard was crying now, silent tears tracking down his face. Amanda stared at her hands. The worst part isn't the money, it's the cruelty. You made me believe I was losing my mind. You convinced me I was sick, incompetent, dying. You put me in a room with barred windows and told everyone I was dead. You mourned me while planning how to spend my money. I paused, gathering strength for what came next. I don't know if I'll ever forgive you. I don't know if I want to, but I want you to understand this. You didn't destroy me. You tried. You came close. But I'm standing here, alive and whole, and I'm going to live every day you stole from me. I'm going to build something beautiful from the wreckage you created, and you're going to sit in prison and think about what you could have had if you just loved me the way I loved you. The courtroom was silent when I sat down. Judge Hyland sentenced Richard to 7 years, Vanessa to 7 years, Amanda to 3 years, suspended with 5 years probation and 500 hours community service at an elder care facility. I hope, the judge said, that you spend every day of your sentences considering the gravity of what you've done, not just the legal violation, but the moral one. You tried to bury your mother alive. That you failed is not to your credit. That she survived is a testament to her strength and to the kindness of strangers. May that haunt you. Winter in Seattle was gray and wet, but I found beauty in it, in the rain that washed streets clean, in the early darkness that made home feel like sanctuary. I spent Christmas alone, not because I had to, but because I chose to. Diane invited me to her family dinner, but I declined gently. I needed quiet, needed space to understand who I was now that I'd survived the unsurvivable. Rosa came to visit in January, using the ticket I'd bought her, staying in my guest room for 2 weeks. We walked through Pike Place Market, ate fresh salmon, watched the ferries cross the Sound. She told me about her daughter, about the medical school applications they were preparing, about the life that was opening up because I'd kept my promise. You changed my life, Senora, Rosa said over coffee one morning. My daughter, she will be doctor because you give us chance. You saved my life, I corrected. This is just repayment. No, Rosa said firmly. This is what good people do. They lift each other up. In February, I sold the Magnolia House. It held too many ghosts of David's early death, of Richard and Amanda's childhood, of the months I'd spent there being slowly poisoned. I donated most of the furniture to charity, kept only what mattered, photo albums, David's watch, the quilt his mother had made us as a wedding gift. I bought a smaller place in Portland's Pearl District, modern, light-filled, with views of the city and mountains. A fresh start in a city where no one knew my story, unless I chose to tell it. But before I moved, I did one more thing. I established the Claudia Morrison Foundation for Elder Justice. I funded it with 1/4 of my remaining assets, enough to make it sustainable, enough to help others who'd been victimized by the people who should have protected them. We hired a small staff, a lawyer to provide free legal representation, a social worker to coordinate services, an investigator to document abuse cases, and Rosa, who I brought to Portland as our director of victim advocacy. Her nursing background, her experience, her heart, all of it perfect for helping others navigate what we'd survived. Our first case came in March. An 80-year-old man whose nephew had taken power of attorney and was systematically emptying his accounts. We stopped it, reversed it, got the nephew arrested. The old man cried when we told him his money was secure. I thought I was just being paranoid, he said. Everyone told me I should trust family. Family should earn trust, I told him, not demand it. By spring, we'd helped 12 people. By summer, 28. The foundation grew, the staff expanded, and I found purpose in the wreckage. Amanda's baby was born in April, a boy, healthy and beautiful, according to the photos Amanda's husband sent Diane, who forwarded them to me after asking permission. I looked at my grandson's face, my flesh, my blood, and felt nothing. Maybe someday that would change, maybe not. I was learning that love didn't obligate me to relationship, especially with people who tried to destroy me. Richard and Vanessa served their time at separate facilities. I never visited, never wrote. Diane told me Richard sent letters, dozens of them, all apologizing, all begging for another chance. I burned them unread. Some doors, once closed, stay closed. In October, almost exactly a year after they'd abandoned me in Costa Rica, I stood in the foundation offices watching Rosa train a new victim advocate. The woman being trained was 73, had been exploited by her daughter, and wanted to turn her pain into purpose, just like I had. "You think we make difference?" Rosa asked me quietly. "I know we do," I said. "One person at a time, one family broken by greed, healed by justice." She smiled. "Your children, they try to bury you, but you grow into something beautiful instead, like seed in dark soil." That night I stood on my Portland balcony watching the city lights below. My phone rang. Diane, checking in like she did every few days. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm good," I said, and meant it. Really good. "They're up for parole review in 5 years. You know that, right?" "I know. I'll deal with it when it comes." "And Amanda? She's been asking Diane if you'd consider meeting the baby." I watched rain begin to fall, gentle and persistent. "Maybe someday, but not today, not yet." "That's fair," Diane said. "You get to decide your boundaries now. Nobody else." After we hung up, I stayed on the balcony letting rain mist over me. Somewhere in this city, Rosa was tucking her daughter into bed, dreaming of medical school. Somewhere, an old man was sleeping soundly, knowing his money was secure. Somewhere, someone was being exploited by family. And tomorrow, our foundation would get the call and we'd fight for them. I'd been declared dead, but I'd chosen to live, really live, with purpose and power and boundaries built from titanium. That was my resurrection. That was my revenge. 6 months later, I stood in a conference room at the National Association of Elder Justice Advocates, preparing to give my first keynote speech. 200 people filled the space. Lawyers, social workers, advocates, survivors, all gathered to talk about family financial exploitation. I'd been invited to tell my story, to put a face to the statistics. Rosa sat in the front row, along with Diane and Thomas. My hands were steady as I arranged my notes, though my heart pounded with something between fear and exhilaration. "My name is Claudia Morrison," I began, "and 2 years ago, my children tried to bury me alive." The room went silent. I told them everything. The pills, the false diagnosis, the Costa Rican nursing home, the declared death, the resurrection in the probate court. I didn't spare details, didn't soften the cruelty. Let them see exactly how calculated familial betrayal could be. "The question everyone asks," I said near the end, "is why? Why would children do this to a parent?" And the answer is almost always the same. Desperation meeting opportunity. My son had gambling debts. My daughter-in-law had credit card debt. They saw my assets as a solution to their problems, and they convinced themselves that taking those assets was somehow justified. I paused, looking out at faces reflecting shock, recognition, anger. But here's what I want you to understand. I didn't survive because I was special. I survived because I got lucky. Lucky that a nurse named Rosa cared enough to help a stranger. Lucky that my friend Diane believed me when I called from the grave. Lucky that a lawyer remembered a favor I'd done 15 years earlier. Remove any one of those people, and I'd still be in that facility, or dead from neglect, or permanently erased while my children spent my money. So many victims of elder exploitation don't have those lifelines, don't have Rosa or Diane or Thomas. They suffer in silence, drugged or isolated or coerced into signing away their autonomy. And when they die, really die, not just legally, their families inherit wealth built on abuse and no one ever knows. I held up a folder thick with documents. This is why I started the Claudia Morrison Foundation. In 18 months, we've helped 63 people reclaim their autonomy. We've recovered over $4 million stolen by family members. We've assisted in 37 criminal prosecutions. We're training advocates, educating families, changing laws, but it's not enough. It won't ever be enough until we shift how society thinks about elder rights, until we stop assuming family always acts in good faith, until we create systems that protect people before they're victimized, not just after. The applause when I finished was thunderous. Afterward, people lined up to talk to me, some wanting to volunteer, some sharing their own stories, some crying as they described parents or grandparents they'd been unable to save. An elderly black woman in her 80s took both my hands in hers. "My son did the same thing to me," she whispered. "He didn't send me away, but he took control of everything, made me feel crazy for questioning him. I got out, but barely. Thank you for speaking the truth. That night, back in my Portland apartment, I opened a package that had arrived while I was traveling. Inside was a small wooden box, beautifully carved, with a note from Rosa's daughter, Mrs. Morrison. My mother told me what you did for our family. I start medical school next month because of your kindness. I made this box for you, to hold whatever you value most. Thank you for saving my mother. Thank you for seeing us. With gratitude, Maria, I opened the box. It was lined with soft fabric, empty and waiting. I knew immediately what belonged inside. I went to my office and retrieved the folder Diane had given me a year ago, the photographs from the courtroom. The moment I'd walked in and shattered Richard and Amanda's careful plan. In the images, my face was gaunt but fierce, my eyes clear, my spine straight. I'd been declared dead, and I was standing there alive, proof that some things cannot be erased. I placed the photos in Maria's box, along with the first dollar bill the foundation had recovered for a victim, added Rosa's contact information from that first phone call, saved on a scrap of paper, added the speech notes from today, marked with coffee stains and handwritten additions. These were my treasures now. Not money or property or blood ties that proved meaningless, but evidence of survival, of transformation, of the choice to turn pain into purpose. I carried the box to my bedroom and placed it on the dresser where I'd see it every morning. Beside it, I set a small framed photo, me and Rosa and Diane, taken last month at the foundation offices, all of us laughing at something someone had said. Family of choice, family that chose to save instead of destroy. My phone buzzed, a text from Thomas. Saw you're trending on Twitter. Your speech is everywhere. People are listening, Claudia. You're making a difference. I smiled and typed back, we're making a difference. Couldn't do it without you. Another text, this one from an unknown number. Mom, it's Amanda. I saw your speech. I understand if you never want to talk to me again, but I need you to know I'm sorry. Every single day I'm sorry. Your grandson is 2 now. His name is David, after Dad. If you ever want to meet him, we're here. I stared at that message for a long time, felt the old pain rise up. The memory of my daughter's betrayal, the way she'd stood by while her brother and sister-in-law drugged me into submission, the way she'd helped plan my erasure. But I also thought about what Dr. Kim had said months ago. Forgiveness isn't required for healing. Neither is reconciliation. What matters is that you move forward on your terms, not theirs. My terms, my choice, my boundary to draw or redraw. I didn't respond to Amanda's text, not that night, maybe not ever, but I didn't delete it either. Just left it there, unanswered, a door neither fully open nor permanently closed. Instead, I walked to my balcony, the one that had become my thinking space, my sanctuary. The city spread below, lights flickering like earthbound stars. Rain had cleared, leaving air that smelled clean and full of possibility. I thought about Elijah Washington, whose necklace had been stolen 100 years ago during a lynching. Thought about how his descendant had reclaimed that history, had transformed stolen jewelry into museum testimony. Thought about how trauma, acknowledged and honored, could become power. I thought about the old version of myself, the woman who'd trusted easily, who'd believed blood ties guaranteed love, who'd signed away her power of attorney because her children asked. That woman was gone, declared dead more completely than any fraudulent certificate could accomplish. The woman standing on this balcony was different, harder in some ways, softer in others. She knew that love without boundaries was just permission for harm. She knew that family earned its place, didn't claim it by genetics alone. She knew that survival sometimes meant choosing strangers' kindness over relatives' cruelty. She knew she was free. I stayed there until the city lights began to dim, until the eastern sky started to lighten with the threat of sunrise. Somewhere in Seattle, Richard and Vanessa were waking in their separate prison cells, counting down days until parole hearings I would attend and oppose. Somewhere, Amanda was feeding a 2-year-old grandson I might never meet. Somewhere, Rosa's daughter was studying anatomy, building the future I'd helped secure. And here, in Portland, in an apartment filled with light and chosen family and purpose built from wreckage, I was alive, thoroughly, defiantly, triumphantly alive. They'd tried to declare me dead. I'd declared myself free instead. The sunrise broke over the mountains, painting the city in shades of gold and rose. I watched it come, welcoming the new day, and smiled. This was resurrection, not the courtroom moment, not the dramatic revelation, but this, the quiet morning after, the choice to keep living, the decision to turn victimhood into victory, one sunrise at a time. I went inside and made coffee, the smell rich and familiar, Opened my laptop to emails from people who'd seen my speech, who wanted help, who needed justice. I answered them one by one, patient and thorough, giving back what Rosa had given me, the lifeline that says you matter, your story matters, you will survive this. Outside my window, Portland woke and bustled. Inside, I worked and planned and built. The foundation was growing. We were opening a second office in San Francisco, training advocates in 5 states, pushing legislation that would make it harder for families to exploit elderly relatives. At noon, Diane called. "Coffee later? I want to hear how the speech went." "It went well," I said. "Really well. Come by at 3?" After we hung up, I stood and stretched, my body strong again after months of physical therapy to undo the damage of prolonged sedation. I looked at Maria's wooden box on my dresser, at the photos of my survival inside. I'd been declared dead, but I'd risen from that grave with dirt under my nails and fire in my belly. I'd turned theft into philanthropy, betrayal into boundaries, trauma into testimony that helped others survive. Some stories end with forgiveness, some end with reconciliation. Mine ended with this: freedom from the lie that family comes first, freedom to choose who deserved my love, freedom to build a life that honored the woman I'd become through survival rather than the mother I'd been before betrayal. They'd tried to bury me, they'd forgotten I was a seed, and now I was blooming, wild and untamed, in soil, fertilized by everything they'd tried to take. That was enough. That was everything. Thank you very much for watching. Share with those who also like stories. Subscribe and tell me in the comments if you liked my story. Cheers.